Now, after the aftermath, like the after effect of that is going to send Bitcoin to the fucking moon. Like it's going to rip your face off. Again, short-term liquidity, long-term, incredibly bullish. I would not be surprised to see a $500,000 Bitcoin, $1 million Bitcoin in the next 12 to 18 months.
Bitcoin may be on the brink of a major breakout, with prices projected to reach between $250,000 and $1 million within the next 12 to 18 months. This bold forecast comes from Jack Mallers, CEO of Strike, who argues that a weakening US dollar will act as a catalyst for Bitcoin's ascent. As central banks prepare for rate cuts, global liquidity is expected to surge, historically favoring hard assets like Bitcoin. Mallers explains that a declining dollar will lead to currency devaluation worldwide, further increasing Bitcoin's appeal as a store of value. With institutional interest at an all-time high and Bitcoin's supply on exchanges decreasing, market conditions are set for a parabolic move. Mallers' latest projections now place Bitcoin between $500,000 and $1 million within the next 18 months. Make sure to watch this next clip, where Mallers outlines more insights into increased Bitcoin adoption. Also, if you enjoy listening to crypto-related content, please show your support by liking and subscribing to this channel by following the link in my bio, and get access to my free daily crypto updates and expert predictions direct to your inbox. Each newsletter contains on-chain data, forecasts and expert predictions. All of this is available free of charge. It only takes a moment to sign up and you can always change your mind later. Now back over to Jack Mallers.
There's a lot of volatility in markets, and everyone is tying it to a trade war, to Trump's tariffs. Here's my message to the public. This is bigger than tariffs. This is the post-World War II economic order unwinding. People think that this is about Trump's tariffs or about trade wars with other nations. It is not. The entire global economic system that has existed since World War II is breaking down, okay? The United States has spent the last 80 years or so running what's called a trade deficit, sending dollars abroad to other countries, exporting dollars, and importing goods and debt, okay? This system is no longer sustainable. It was never built to last, and it is coming to an end. This is not another trade war. This is a full-blown economic reset. This is the United States saying, we cannot run this scam any longer. Okay, what am I talking about? After World War II, the United States created a system that worked for a little bit. What was the problem? Okay, the US was the only industrial power left standing after World War II. Okay, it funded the global reconstruction of the rest of the world. So primarily, you had Europe, Japan, other industrial powers were decimated, destroyed, okay? And the world needed to somehow get back on its feet and start producing things again. And the US used things like the Marshall Plan, Bretton Woods, over the last, 50, 60, 70, 80 years to bootstrap the world back on its feet. The other countries around the world needed dollars to rebuild their economy and rebuild their industrial power. The US figured we will provide them the dollars, okay? So here was the plan. Other parts of the world would start producing stuff and exporting them into the United States. The US would import the goods that they're producing and export them the dollars, okay? So other countries around the world would get dollars and US debt by treasuries, okay? The US would shoo away with the dollars and get goods and services, okay? Now this worked for a while, and it was the greatest trade deal in history. Because why? The world got to reindustrialize after a devastating world war, and the US got rich. Everyone was happy until obviously it stopped working. Now, this is known as the Triffin's dilemma, okay? This is the system that was never built to actually last. What is the Triffin's dilemma? It's when, if you have a fiat currency, a government currency that's the global reserve currency, it's a bit of a trap, okay? Meaning that you have to, if you have the world reserve currency, you have to run a deficit in order to supply the rest of the world with the reserve currency. Your job is not to produce real things, real goods and services for the world. Your job is, unfortunately, to give the world your currency. So you're never producing more for the world than you're consuming. At the end of the day, you have to hold yourself to printing more pieces of paper than you're consuming goods. So you are going to run a giant deficit. You are going to print a lot of money and run up a lot of debt. The reason the US has so much debt is because they have the world reserve currency. This is so misunderstood. Sometimes people say, man, the US has the world reserve currency. They're so dumb. Why do they have so much debt? No, you're misunderstanding. They have so much debt only because they have the world reserve currency. Their job is to constantly be exporting the dollar. Now, what does that do to your local economy and to your country? It hollows out the domestic economy over time. The world kept needing dollars, so the US kept printing dollars, okay? That means we stopped producing actual stuff, okay? So our industrial power went to shit. Factory jobs, our middle class, everything. Like when I'm using the term hollowed out, like the inner structure of America decimated. We talk about things like the wealth gap. Look around. If you're an American listening to this, go into your pocket, look at your phone, look at who made everything around you. It's probably not in the United States of America. The middle class no longer exists here. The wealth gap is massive. You're either on the far left, the far right, as far as monetary wealth in place within our economy. So this is not a very sustainable, listen, it's obvious. It's not very sustainable to print dollars and create debt in exchange for real things. You have to do real stuff in the real world. You cannot just print pieces of paper forever. Obviously, duh. This was only a solution to bootstrap the rest of the world and get them back on their feet. This was never supposed to be the rest of the world forever, ever. This was a short-term, short stopgap solution. This was never, ever supposed to be how the world was going to work forever. And this is known as the Triffin's dilemma. It's having the world reserve currency. It is a system that is built to fail.
Meanwhile, the Czech Republic just made a huge move for Bitcoin investors. President Petr Pavel has signed a bill that exempts Bitcoin from capital gains tax if held for at least 3 years. This makes the country one of the most crypto-friendly nations in Europe. With this law, long-term Bitcoin holders keep 100% of their profits, and small transactions under $3,900 won't require reporting. Meanwhile, the Czech National Bank is considering adding Bitcoin to its reserves, a step also made as the country recognizes the asset. By cutting taxes and embracing crypto, the Czech Republic is preparing for a series of investment, innovation, and financial growth. Other EU nations may soon have to follow its lead. Now let's go back to hear more mind-blowing Bitcoin outlooks from Jack Mallers.
I've told you guys, $100,000 is a big psychological number for this asset, okay? I expect a lot of short-term volatility. This stuff has to unwind. Someone has to bend the knee, okay? Is Trump going to publicly backtrack on his campaign promises and backtrack on his vision for the country, which is reshoring production, weakening the dollar, and starting to realign the relationships we have with other nations? Or is the Fed going to be forced to bend the knee? Something has to break. But until then, there isn't enough liquidity and clarity to send assets much higher. If anything, there's going to be a crisis. Okay? I expect a lot of volatility in the short term. Now, in the long term, who's the big winner of a weaker dollar and a realignment of the macroeconomic landscape, unwinding of World War II? The big winner are scarce assets. The big winner are neutral assets. The big winner are world assets, assets that everyone has access to that are neutral and can act as a reserve currency. The two candidates are obvious. It's either gold or Bitcoin. That's it. Now, I'd make the argument that gold already failed as a world reserve currency, because in a digital economy of 8 billion people, you need trust in order for it to work. Gold cannot achieve transaction finality without trust, okay? When I needed to exchange gold with my neighbor, gold works fine. Peer-to-peer, hand it. Hand it right to my neighbor. Transaction finality, done. But if I need to use gold to book a flight online, if I need to use gold to make a remittance payment, when I need to use gold to order NFL tickets, I need to trust a financial institution. Gold cannot achieve transaction finality in today's economy, in today's world, without trust. If you trust governments, if you trust corporations, if you trust central banks, gold works great. But it's not the money of enemies anymore. It's gold centralized, and it's too easy to manipulate. So listen, in a weaker dollar environment, Bitcoin's the best performer. Bitcoin absorbs the most value. I think the upside over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, 100 years for Bitcoin to be a major player as a neutral reserve asset for the world, you guys have to understand. The Triffin's dilemma, like no country wants the world reserve currency. We have to move towards neutral reserve asset. Nobody wins in this environment.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to access my free daily crypto updates and expert predictions direct to your inbox.